What's up, nerds? The calendar has turned and we all now have one less year to finish that to-do list. So join me, won't you, in making 2025 the year of getting our together. Case in point, you may remember me making this a few years ago. It's my small parts rack, and it is one of the best things I have ever done for myself. It stores and organizes all of my screws, my grommets, my rivets, what have you. It lets me know at a glance what I've got, and more importantly, what I don't got. Unfortunately, it's gotten pretty filthy. I've got random stuff piled up here, things not put away, cases not labeled. So, might as well make a new one. And this video is brought to you by the Woodworkers Guild of America. Went ahead and got all of my rectangles cut out, and I've marked my screw hole positions for everything. I'm going to use pocket hole screws for a lot of this, same way I did my Apple box storage. As usual, I will not be using glue because I don't like to use glue on shop furniture because I like to modify things as I use them. I've also labeled everything on the ends, so I know which pieces go where. And which way the front is. For the vertical pieces that run down the middle, I'm just going to go in through the ends, through the top and bottom. And it's essential that I get these nicely centered because the trays have an exact space that they have to fit in on either side. I am not going to screw these together just yet though, because I want to give them a good sanding and a clear coat, which is going to be easier before assembly, while these are just a bunch of flat pieces. What? No. What? No, wrong piece. So, the real reason I am remaking this is people have been asking me forever for project plans for this so that they can make their own. Well, I am finally making them available. There will be a link down in the video description. This version has served me quite well for several years now, but before drawing up the plans, there are a few minor things I wanted to change. First, I want to add more cases. These are the ubiquitous Stanley organizers. Harbor Freight makes a similar version. These aren't perfect, but as far as I'm concerned, they are about the best option available for those of us who cannot afford Sortimo. So to fit more of these, the first thing I'm going to do is make this a bit taller. Also, I've found that I don't really use these drawers. There's stuff in here, but it's all things that really need to go someplace else. They don't really have anything to do with hardware storage. So I'm gonna eliminate these, which is gonna give me room for a few more cases. Right now, this holds 38 of these shallow cases. I do not remember why I did not round that up to 40, but the new version is going to hold 50 of these cases. So I've got to make 100 of these runners. Yeah, so there's a lot of repetition with these runners, although I kind of like doing this kind of production work sometimes. However, these are not as straightforward as it seems. Half of these runners face opposite directions, so the countersinks have to remain on the inside, of course, which means that the little chamfer on the end ends up on opposite ends. Also, the divider down the middle is going to have runners on either side, right across from each other. So I've got to make sure that half of the ones that face that direction have the holes offset from the other holes. That way the screws are not running into each other. And yes, I did miscount and screw up one of these piles at least once. The only thing that's left now is I just want to break these sharp edges. So I ordered myself a sanding mop kit, and a sanding mop is, well, it's what it sounds like. Imagine a mop, but made out of sandpaper. As usual, I will link to the tools I use down in the video description. I've got a 240, I've got a 120, and I've got an 80. I'm gonna start with the 240, and I'm gonna see how this works and see if it makes doing all of these a little bit easier. So it comes all flat like this, but as you use it, it's supposed to fluff up. So I went ahead and made myself a fluffer. This will also allow me to test how well it works. Actually, let's try the 120 first. My fluffer isn't working so well. There it goes. You gotta get kind of rough with the fluffer. Turn on the vacuum. Oh, that will take some material off. See, there we go. Now it looks like a mop. I'm gonna play with this a little bit more before I go into production mode. All right, I went back to the 240, gave it a good proper fluffing. It seems much more cooperative now. And just ran one of the runners through here. a couple of quick passes and it's just broken these edges. Just perfectly, just rounded off these corners. Just exactly the way I want. I think this works great. So, thumbs up to the sanding mops. It's gonna make it a lot easier than doing each one of these by hand. Good YouTubers check their battery levels. Great YouTubers aren't afraid of looking dumb. So TotalBoat saw my last video and sent me a bunch of replacements. Thank you, TotalBoat. For the first version of the rack, I made a spacing jig that allowed me to align each of the runners the correct distance apart. It worked all right, but I had to check my work every couple of runners to make sure I wasn't getting cumulative error due to the jig or the runners being slightly off. 30 thou, 15 times is almost half an inch, and then the last case won't fit. This time, I have made a template that allows me to place several of these at once. I will include this with the project plans, using a couple of Apple boxes to lift this up to allow me to use these clamps. I love these locking clamps, by the way. I use these for stuff like this all the time. Got these off Amazon, link below. And I added 6mm nuts to the threads back here. That way I can lock them to the correct width, because anybody who's used these before knows that you open and close them a few times and you have to go back and readjust them again. You can make these runners out of solid wood, by the way. I am using Baltic birch. I used the same thing on the other rack, and they have worked fantastically with no chipping or anything for, what's it been, 5 years? And just like that. This is so much nicer than the last one. Oh, God, hot, hot. Remember, kids, friction makes things hot. I have screw threads permanently burned into my index finger now. I just forgot to pre-drill this. Sometimes physics is painful. I don't know if you can tell from there, but I'm using Robertson screws. I've decided to try to slowly transition to these instead of Phillips. Whenever I use these, I always get a lot of comments from very excited Canadians. That is so satisfying in a very strange way. Also, in a previous video, I referred to some screws I was using as square drive, and I got a lot of people correcting me that actually they're called Robertson. Fun fact, square drive and Robertson are two different things. Robertson has a taper, square does not. Do, 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 do. Now, if this worked correctly, I should have 7/8 of an inch below the last one. Look at that. A quick word about this spacing, by the way. This does accommodate both the shallow and the deep Stanley cases in the same rack. Puts about 3/8 of an inch between the shallow cases. I've had a couple of people tell me they closed that gap a little so they could compact things a little more. If that works for you, great. I don't recommend it because when you get a case that gets pretty full and heavy, the bottom will bow out just a little bit, like with my case full of number 10 screws. I tested closing the gap below it by about 1/8 of an inch with a couple of shims, and the next case ran right into it. So now I just have to do this 89 more times, which I will do off camera, and then we can start to assemble the cabinet. And if I do this right, this should just go together like Legos. The plural is Lego. Present your argument for Lego versus Legos down in the comments. Oh, good. Oh. Worried about that for 3 days. You know, I think I'm starting to get the hang of this whole cabinet making thing. And if you're here watching this, I assume you're probably here to learn something yourself. If so, I recommend checking out Woodworkers Guild of America, who is sponsoring this project. Right now, they are offering new members a year's membership for $1.49. A whole year for $1.49. Woodworkers Guild of America is, well, it's an online resource for woodworking instructions, new ideas and information. Their library of instructional videos is produced for creators of all skill levels, from beginner to expert. And these are true instructional videos, not just, some guy like me driving screws and giving trolls a lateral lisp for some reason. When you join, you'll get access to plans, articles, and videos like how to choose the right pocket screw, relevant, more advanced joinery like dovetails and splines, using hand planes, boat building, and more. As I continue to build storage in here, I will be taking advantage of their content on cabinet making, which I could stand to learn more about. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the video description get a full year of premium membership to Woodworkers Guild of America for just $1.49. That link is right down there. Or scan the QR code. Something else I wanted to change, I put the old one on casters, and some people were understandably concerned that it might be a little tippy. I've only moved it 3 or 4 times, I think, and I'm always sure to, push it long ways. I'm always really careful with it, so it hasn't been a problem. But this one is taller and it's going to be heavier, so I am extending the base. All right, one more thing. This tray, of course, is to give me a surface to set these on when I pull them out. But there's a couple of things about this that annoy me. So we're gonna fix them. So one of the things I like about this tray is whenever I get one of these cases out, I don't have to close it up and stick it back in the rack every time. I can just tuck it away temporarily because I'm probably going to come back to this case a couple times anyway, but it's not sticking out where I'm going to knock into it. However, I made the conscious decision for some reason not to include the extra couple of inches of space it would take to tuck away the deep cases, because I don't use that many of them, so I figured it wouldn't bother me. It bothers me. So this time I added a couple of inches to this opening. Also, one very minor thing, whenever this is on a spot in my floor that is not level, which seems to be all the time, the tray slowly creeps closed on me. So I am mounting these to tilt slightly forward. Okay, yeah, I think my tray is just like a tiny bit too wide, so it's just getting jammed right here at the end. I'll have to go back and trim that later. But as you can see, it now fits the deeper cases. Like with the previous version, I built it with an aluminum angle frame to stiffen it and to give me something to attach the drawer slides to. And I have fixed the last annoyance that I've always had with the old tray. With the previous version, I had just enough room front to back to set my cases on, with a piece of 1/8" aluminum bar along the front that stuck up just enough it acted as a pull. Problem was, with that sticking up, I kind of had to wedge my fingers in past it to get underneath the latches to open the cases. Not a huge deal, but it's better than having to do that? Not having to do that. So I made the new tray about 1 inch deeper. It gives me a little more room, and the new pull sticks down instead of up. It's flush with the top, so it doesn't get in the way of the latches. Now, I just got to transfer everything over to the new rack. And caught a great deal on these a few years ago, so I stocked up. That is beautiful. And I have been 3D printing some custom bins. I modeled myself up a customizable version in Fusion, and I've made myself already several versions of this. They never include enough of this size. Plus I've added this little lip here to make it easier to pull them out. And I can make my own versions like this long one I use for my nipples. Stop it. The biggest version they make is this one, which I keep my Clecos in, and my Cleco pliers, although my Cleco pliers don't really fit. So I just made a bigger version. By the way, don't think that it doesn't bother me that these yellows don't match. Several people have made numerous customized versions of these available for download. I'll include links to those in the project plans. The project plans, by the way, will include measurements for both the Stanley cases and for the Harbor Freight versions, which are slightly different. I may still be working on the project plans the day this video goes live, by the way, but follow that link down in the video description to check. If they're not ready yet, there will be a sign up where you can get notified by email the moment they go live, and then I delete your email address. If you guys have any ideas for additions or modifications to this, let me know down in the comments. Also, I have a Patreon where I post post-mortem videos on my projects where I go a little more into detail and give some behind-the-scenes stuff that I didn't include in the main video. Again, that link is down in the video description. Now, I get to break out my label maker